For 20 years, Elena Hartman had convinced herself that silence was the price of stability. Her marriage to Daniel wasn't warm, but it functioned. He worked long hours, avoided conflict. She carried the emotional weight of the household, birthdays remembered, holidays planned, grief handled alone when her mother died. It wasn't a fair marriage, but it was steady, something she could lean on when the world felt too sharp. The morning of their 20th anniversary began with the same calm predictability. Elena moved quietly through the house, sunlight filtering through the kitchen curtains as she brewed coffee. Daniel sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, barely glancing up when she placed a mug beside him. He murmured a distracted thanks without looking her way. She didn't expect more. She hadn't in years. Still, she had planned something small, a dinner reservation at their favorite old restaurant downtown. Nothing extravagant, just something to remind them that they'd made it through 2 decades, through job changes, stress, financial storms, and the slow drift that came with adulthood. Before they left, she wanted to wear her mother's necklace, a delicate gold piece with a single emerald at the center. It had belonged to her grandmother before her mother. It was the last heirloom from a line of strong women who never had much but treasured what they owned. Elena went upstairs to their bedroom, humming faintly as she opened the jewelry drawer. The velvet lining was cold under her fingers. She pushed aside the earrings she rarely wore, the bracelets tangled from years of being ignored, and finally reached for the small box containing the emerald necklace. Her fingers touched nothing. She paused, moved a few items aside, felt along the edges of the drawer. Still nothing. A faint tightness gripped her chest. She removed the entire tray from the drawer. The box wasn't there. The necklace wasn't there. Her earrings were in different compartments than she remembered. Her wedding gift bracelet, white gold engraved, was missing entirely. She whispered to herself, "No, no, I wouldn't lose this. I wouldn't." She checked the second drawer, then the third, then the side table, under the bed. Every place she logically or irrationally might have placed it. She opened drawers she hadn't touched in months. Nothing. Her heartbeat slowed to a troubling, heavy thud. This wasn't misplacement. She might forget grocery lists or misplace a sweater, but not this necklace. Not something so precious. She stood in front of the dresser, staring at the now disrupted velvet tray, and felt a creeping unease curl up her spine. "Elena," Daniel called from downstairs. "We leaving soon?" She inhaled slowly, forced her face neutral, and walked to the stairs. Daniel stood at the bottom, coat on, keys in hand. He didn't notice her distress, not at first. "What's wrong?" he asked, but his tone suggested mild annoyance more than concern. "My necklace is missing," she said. "The emerald one, from my mother." He blinked once, shrugged. "Maybe you misplaced it." "I didn't misplace it." Her voice was firm, sharper than she intended. "And the bracelet is gone too. Did you move anything?" Daniel frowned, but only faintly. "Elena, you always reorganize things. Maybe you put it somewhere unusual." Her stomach tightened. She studied him carefully. His eyes didn't meet hers. He shifted his weight. His hand tightened slightly around the keys. "You're not listening," she said. "It's gone." He sighed. "We'll look later. We're going to be late for the reservation." Late? She could barely breathe. But he brushed past her, walked toward the door as if she had complained about misplacing a scarf, as if the last piece of her mother's legacy wasn't worth pausing for. For the first time in years, she felt a crack in the foundation of her marriage. Not an argument, not a resentment, but a realization. Daniel didn't care. About the necklace. About her distress. Maybe about much of anything. She grabbed her coat and followed him outside, needing air more than she needed an answer. The evening was cool, the streets quiet. The neighbor's porch light flickered across the lawn. Elena stopped mid-step. Her breath caught in her throat. Across the street, standing on her porch while chatting with someone out of view, was their neighbor, Mara Calloway. Elena barely knew her beyond polite greetings and shared mail missed deliveries, but she knew the necklace around Mara's neck. Gold chain, emerald center. The slight tilt in the setting where Elena's mother had once bumped it on a doorknob. Every detail matched. It was her necklace, her mother's necklace, on someone else. Her body went still, frozen, locked. An electric shock of disbelief radiated through her limbs. Daniel was already at the car, scrolling on his phone again, oblivious. Mara laughed at something, the emerald glinting against the porch light like a blade flashing in moonlight. Elena felt her throat tighten, her pulse hammering in her ears. A strange nausea rolled through her. None of this made sense. None of it was possible, but it was real. Mara was wearing her necklace. The world around her muted, blurred at the edges. A single searing thought cut through the fog. How did my mother's necklace end up on my neighbor's throat? Elena didn't remember crossing the street. One moment she stood frozen on her own driveway. The next she was at the edge of Mara Calloway's porch steps. Her pulse pounding so hard it distorted the edges of her vision. The closer she walked, the clearer the necklace became. Every curve, every imperfection in the emerald setting, precisely as she remembered it. Mara noticed her only when Elena's shadow interrupted the warm porch light. She startled slightly, hand flying to her chest before her expression eased. "Oh, Elena, right?" she said with a polite smile. "Did you need something?" Elena's eyes locked on the emerald. She forced herself to breathe before speaking, keeping her tone even. "That necklace," she said. "It's beautiful." "Oh, this?" Mara touched it lightly, almost self-conscious. "It was a gift." "A gift," Elena repeated, her throat dry. Mara nodded. "A friend gave it to me. Said I deserved something nice in my life for once." A friend. Elena's stomach twisted. The emerald caught the porch light again, searing its familiarity into her memory like a brand. Her voice trembled despite her effort to steady it. "Where did your friend get it?" Mara blinked, surprised by the direct question. "I don't really know." "Why?" "Because it's mine. Because it vanished from my drawer this morning. Because you're standing here wearing the last thing my mother left me." But Elena didn't say any of that. She swallowed the rising panic. Something felt wrong, beyond the necklace, beyond its sudden appearance on someone else. Mara shifted, tugging her cardigan closed, hiding the necklace halfway. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her earlier warmth fading. There was a tension in her posture, not fear, but something like guilt or unease. Elena took a step back. "I'm fine. I just thought I recognized it." She turned before Mara could question her further. Her legs felt unsteady as she crossed the street again. From the corner of her eye, she saw Mara watching her, a hand still pressed protectively over the emerald, as if guarding it. Daniel looked up from the car when she approached. "Where did you go?" She didn't answer. She slid into the passenger seat, closed the door, and stared out at the darkening street. Her mind raced, puzzle pieces slamming together, but refusing to form a clear picture. When they drove off, she watched the necklace gleam through the rear window until it disappeared. Dinner was a blur. Candlelight flickered across the tablecloth. Waiters moved around them. Other couples laughed softly. But Elena heard none of it. She couldn't taste the food. Her thoughts churned relentlessly. Her necklace was on Mara Calloway's neck. Daniel didn't react. Didn't question her sudden silence. Didn't ask again about the missing jewelry. He barely noticed her at all. By the time they returned home, her pulse hadn't slowed. She went straight upstairs, opened her jewelry drawer again, and searched with trembling hands. The arrangement was definitely altered. Bracelets pushed to one side, earrings scattered, boxes slightly open. This wasn't accidental. Someone had rifled through her things. She checked her wedding bracelet's usual spot beside the necklace box. The space was empty, smooth velvet where it once lay. "Oh God," she whispered. Her breathing quickened. Something wasn't just missing. Multiple pieces were missing. Items of value. Items with sentimental weight. She yanked open Daniel's side of the dresser, searching without knowing what she expected to find. Shirts, old cufflinks, receipts. Nothing unusual. Then she reached into the pocket of his gray winter coat. Her fingertips brushed stiff paper. She pulled it out slowly. A pawn shop receipt, dated last week. Her mouth dried instantly. She unfolded it with shaking hands, reading every detail. Items sold: gold bracelet, custom engraving, sapphire earrings, emerald necklace, appraisal inquiry. Her body went cold. Her necklace hadn't been pawned yet, but he had taken it to get appraised. He had tested its value. Her husband had taken her heirloom, had assessed it like merchandise. and somehow it ended up on Mara's neck. She lowered herself onto the edge of the bed, receipt trembling between her fingers. A nauseating realization clawed its way up her spine. This wasn't random. Daniel wasn't careless. He wasn't confused or forgetful. He had taken her jewelry. He had lied, effortlessly, standing in the doorway, brushing off her panic. The sound of her phone vibrating jolted her. She instinctively checked the screen. A text message. Unknown number. The words chilled her. Stop asking questions. You don't know what he's mixed up in. Her breath hitched violently. This wasn't just betrayal. This was danger. Her hands tightened around the phone as dread pooled at the base of her spine. Whoever sent that message knew she had noticed something. They knew she was starting to put pieces together, and they didn't want her to keep looking. She stood slowly, the room closing in around her. The necklace, the pawn receipt, the altered drawer. Mara's nervousness. This was no misunderstanding. Something dark had rooted itself inside her marriage. Something she had never imagined touching her life. And now it was looking back at her, watching, warning, waiting. Elena didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, replaying every detail. Mara's uneasy smile, the necklace glinting against her skin, the pawn receipt, the anonymous message. Every piece pointed at Daniel, but the pattern felt deeper, more tangled than simple theft. By morning, she felt hollow but determined. Daniel came into the kitchen adjusting his tie, acting as if nothing in their world had shifted. He kissed the air near her cheek, not even touching her skin, then reached for his coffee. "We should talk," she said. He froze only for a heartbeat before recovering his casual posture. "About what?" She placed the pawn receipt on the table between them. The paper might as well have been a live wire. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Why are you going through my things?" "That's your response?" Her voice cracked but did not soften. "You stole my jewelry, my mother's necklace, and my bracelet. Why?" He exhaled heavily, leaning back against the counter. "Elena, calm down. I can explain." "I'm listening." He rubbed his forehead. "I was short on money. I had unexpected expenses. Some medical bills, car repairs. I didn't want to worry you." She stared at him. "Which is it? Medical bills or the car? You told me the car was fine. You said the doctor cleared you last month." Daniel faltered. Barely, but enough. "Look, I was embarrassed, okay? I thought I could fix things without bringing you into it." "You took my inheritance jewelry," she said quietly. "Pieces you knew mattered to me." "It's not a big deal." "It is to me," she cut in sharply. His expression hardened, defensive now. "I said I'll fix it." She realized then that he wasn't sorry. He was merely caught, and his explanations were too smooth, too practiced. She grabbed her phone from the counter. "I'm going out." "Where?" he demanded. "To figure out how much of my life is missing." The pawn shop clerk glanced nervously at the receipt she showed him. "Yeah, I remember," he muttered. He wasn't alone. The words stabbed into her ribs. "Who was he with?" The clerk hesitated. "I don't want trouble. That guy, he's mixed up in—" "I'm his wife," she said, voice steady but desperate. "And I need the truth." The clerk lowered his voice. "He came in with that neighbor of yours, the brunette. They looked familiar with each other." She handled most of the talking. Something inside Elena went ice cold. She thanked him softly and left before he could ask more questions. She didn't want to believe there was an affair, but seeing Mara wearing her necklace, hearing they walked into a pawn shop together, watching Daniel lie without blinking, the possibility wasn't far-fetched. She returned home, adrenaline and dread pulsing through her. She marched next door and knocked. No answer. She knocked harder. This time the door cracked open halfway. Mara stood there, eyes reddened, face pale. "Elena," she whispered, "you shouldn't be here." "Why were you with my husband at a pawn shop?" Elena demanded. Mara swallowed, glancing behind her as if checking for someone. "I can't. Please go." "Did he give you my necklace?" "Elena," her voice trembled, "it's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." Before Mara could respond, a shape moved behind her, a man slipping out the back door. Mara flinched at the sound. Elena caught only a glimpse. Tall, tense, hoodie pulled low. "Who is that?" Elena asked sharply. No one, Mara insisted too quickly. Her hands shook. Please, go home. Elena stepped back, stunned by the raw fear in the woman's eyes. Not defiance, not guilt, fear. She returned to her house in a fog. Something bigger was happening, something that went beyond infidelity. Her phone buzzed again. A second message from the unknown number. Last warning, stop digging. Elena sat down slowly, breath trembling. Last warning. Not don't misunderstand. Not talk to Daniel first. A threat. Her marriage, her home, her entire life. None of it was what she thought. And whatever Daniel was doing, whoever he was involved with, they didn't want her pulling any more threads. But she wasn't stopping. Not now. Not after seeing that fear in Mara's eyes. Truth wasn't an option anymore. It was a necessity. Elena waited until Daniel left for work before making her next move. She watched his car disappear down the street, then grabbed her bag and headed out again, this time with purpose. She had spent 20 years assuming Daniel lived a straightforward life. A stable job, predictable habits, no addictions, no criminal tendencies. But yesterday shattered that illusion. A man who could steal from his own wife was capable of far worse. She returned to the pawn shop, determined to retrieve more than a nervous clerk's memory. The shop owner, an older man with a stern jaw and a measured gaze, looked up as she entered. You were in yesterday. Yes, she said. I need help identifying transactions my husband made. The owner's eyes flicked to the receipt in her hand. He sighed. Look, I don't want problems. Your husband wasn't acting alone. So I heard. He's been in here several times over the past few months, always with different items. Rings, watches, chains. Sometimes with that neighbor lady, sometimes with someone else. Someone else? She pressed. The owner hesitated. A man in his 40s, clean cut, wore gloves even indoors. My instinct says he's bad news. A chill ran through her. And my husband, the owner gave a sympathetic shrug. He looked desperate, like someone pushing deeper into something he couldn't handle. Elena felt her stomach twist. She thanked him and left, her mind racing with the new information. Different items, multiple visits, different people. This wasn't occasional pawning. This was movement, activity, organized. She walked to her car but didn't start it immediately. Instead, she opened her banking app. Rows and rows of withdrawals she had never questioned stared back at her. Small amounts at first, then hundreds, then thousands. Transfers to an account she didn't recognize. Daniel had told her they were paying off renovations, helping his brother, catching up on credit cards. None of it was true. Elena drove to her friend Claire's office, an accountant with access to financial tools Elena didn't fully understand. Claire frowned as she scrolled through the transactions. This isn't personal spending, Claire said eventually. It's pattern-based. Looks like someone funneling money into a shell account. A what? A hidden account used to mask transactions before moving them again. Elena's breath hitched. Why would Daniel need that? Claire looked at her with concern. You need to ask him that. Whatever this is, it's not normal. That evening, Elena sat in the living room with Daniel's financial statements spread across the coffee table. She circled dates, cross-checked withdrawals, and noted patterns. 2 months ago, the jewelry appraisals began. A month before that, large cash withdrawals. Before that, transfers into the unknown account. This wasn't sudden. This was a gradually escalating scheme. When Daniel came home, he froze at the sight of the documents. What is all this? He snapped. I checked our finances, she said, voice steady. What are you involved in? His face paled. You went behind my back again. Behind your back? She said sharply. You stole from me. You sold my jewelry. You're moving money to a hidden account, and you're associating with people who threaten me. His jaw clenched. You don't understand. Then make me understand. He sank onto the sofa, rubbing his temples. I got into something I didn't know how to get out of. What's something? He looked at her with defeated eyes. I owed money. To who? She demanded. He didn't answer. She stood. Daniel, tell me who you're involved with. Silence. She realized then he was protecting someone, or afraid of someone. Her phone buzzed again. A new number. "We heard you talk to the pawn shop again." Elena swallowed hard. Her world wasn't cracking anymore. It was collapsing. She walked to the window and saw movement outside, a silhouette slipping away between the houses, watching. Someone was keeping tabs on her, someone who didn't want her uncovering the truth. This was no longer about a stolen necklace or a cheating husband. This was a crime, and Daniel was buried in it. Whether he wanted out or whether he was too deep to escape, she didn't know. But she knew one thing. She was done being in the dark. Elena barely recognized her own voice when she called the detective whose card she had found slipped under her windshield wiper that morning. The handwriting had been neat, deliberate, and the message simple. "We need to talk about your husband." She expected interrogation, accusations, maybe even suspicion aimed at her. What she did not expect was concern. Detective Rowan met her at a quiet corner table in a nearly empty cafe. He was calm, measured, the kind of man who spoke in complete sentences and watched everything without staring too hard. "Elena," he began, "your husband's name has surfaced in an investigation involving stolen property and money laundering. We think he's being used, and that he's also participating willingly." She clutched the pawn receipt in her hand. "He took my jewelry, my mother's necklace. He gave some of it to our neighbor." The detective nodded. "We know about her. Mara Calloway has been involved for months. She's not romantically linked to him, if that's what you're thinking." A strange, unexpected relief hit her, quickly replaced by confusion. Then why was she with him at the pawn shop? "Because she's part of a distribution chain," Rowan said. "She uses her clean record to move items without raising alarm, but she's not the mastermind." "And Daniel?" Elena whispered. Rowan folded his hands. "Your husband appears to be a middleman, someone who funnels valuables through people like Mara to cover debts. He's been under pressure, wrong people, wrong choices, wrong alliances." Elena swallowed hard. "So he's not cheating." The detective exhaled. "Not in the way you think." Those words sank like stones. Not a denial, not a confirmation. Something in between, something worse. She pulled out her folder, bank statements, screenshots, marked dates. "He's been transferring money to a private account for years, not just months." Rowan studied the documents with a frown. "This is larger than we thought. Some of these transfers match deposits we've been tracking." She felt sick. Her husband wasn't an accidental participant. He was woven into something sustained, organized. "And the threats to my phone?" she asked. "Likely someone in the same network," Rowan said. "Your husband is mixed up with individuals who do not want interference. The moment you started asking questions, they reacted." She thought of the silhouette outside her window, the anonymous warnings, Mara's trembling hands. "I didn't want to believe he was capable of this," Elena whispered. "No one wants to believe it," Rowan said gently. "But you're not safe if you keep pretending everything is fine." The truth landed hard. Her 20-year marriage was not a partnership. It was a structure Daniel had quietly hollowed from the inside. Rowan slid her documents back across the table. "We need your cooperation. If you gather anything else, records, conversations, receipts, we can protect you." She nodded, though her hands trembled. When Elena returned home, Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. His shoulders were slumped, hands clasped tightly as if bracing himself for a storm he had long feared. "Where were you?" he asked, though his voice lacked real curiosity. "I spoke to someone," she said. "Someone who knows what you're involved in." His head snapped up, a flicker of panic. "Elena, how long?" she demanded. "How long have you been moving jewelry? Money? How long have you been lying to me?" His face twisted with something like exhaustion. "It started small. I owed money from stupid gambling years ago. I thought I could fix it, but it got bigger. They kept pulling me deeper." "You dragged me into it," she said. "You used my inheritance. You stole from me." His eyes glistened. Not with remorse, she realized, but self-pity. "I didn't know what else to do. You could have told me." "You would have left," he said quietly. She stared at him, stunned by the simplicity of his reasoning. So instead, you destroyed our marriage quietly, piece by piece? He slammed his fist on the table. You don't understand what they're capable of. And you don't understand what you've done to me, she shot back. To us. The room buzzed with tension. Daniel, she said softly, you're in deep, but you're not protecting us. You're just forcing me to drown with you. He didn't deny it. He didn't argue. He simply lowered his head, defeated. She took a breath. I gave the detective everything. The statements, the receipts, the screenshots. His eyes widened in horror. Elena, you shouldn't have done that. A cold fear slithered up her spine. Why? He shook his head, voice trembling. They'll come after you. They think you're a liability now. The warning came too late. Her phone vibrated again. A third message from a new number. You involved the police. Wrong move. Her blood ran cold. The stakes had changed. She wasn't just uncovering a crime. She was now part of it, whether she wanted to be or not. Elena didn't leave the house for 2 days after the third threat. She barely slept, barely ate, moving through the rooms like a shadow in her own life. Daniel tried to speak to her several times, but she shut him out. Any conversation with him now felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. One wrong step, and she would plummet with him. But questions gnawed at her. Why had Daniel started this? What was he hiding beyond the debts? Who were the people threatening her? And what else had he stolen, besides jewelry, money, and 20 years of trust? Answers came not from Daniel, but from the past, the years she had once believed were innocent. It started when she opened her mother's old estate box, a small chest she had kept sealed since the funeral. She needed grounding, something real, something that still belonged to her. Inside were old letters, insurance papers, and the will. She thumbed through them absent-mindedly until one document caught her eye. A temporary asset protection agreement, dated the first year of her marriage, Daniel's signature and hers. She didn't remember signing this. Her blood chilled as she read. Authorization for spouse to manage, withdraw, or transfer inheritance assets in cases deemed necessary for household stability. The language was vague, intentionally so. And the withdrawals, she checked the dates. The withdrawals began the same year. She stared at the papers, realization slamming into her like a physical blow. Daniel's pattern didn't start when he said it did. He had been siphoning her inheritance for 20 years. Not recently, not after a gambling loss, not under sudden pressure. 20 years. The theft didn't grow from desperation. It grew from opportunity. A cold, practiced betrayal. Her hands trembled as she grabbed another folder. Insurance adjustments from a decade ago. More signatures, more transfers. All pointing to the same truth. She married him at 22, trusting him with everything. He had used her innocence like a bank account. But the deeper twist hadn't surfaced yet. That came when she searched the name tied to the private account Daniel had been funneling money into. It wasn't his. It wasn't a shell company. It wasn't a criminal alias. It belonged to a woman named Rachel Kessler. Elena didn't recognize the name, but the pattern of payments told a story. Regular deposits for rent, medical expenses, education fees. This wasn't an affair. Affairs didn't span decades with structured financial support. This looked like responsibility, or obligation, or guilt. She dug deeper, cross-referencing old records, public data, and archived addresses. One detail stabbed through the fog. Rachel lived in the same county during the first year of Elena and Daniel's marriage. The timeline connected with surgical precision. Her breath faltered as a possibility, an awful, unavoidable truth, formed in her mind. Was Rachel someone Daniel loved before her? Someone he never let go? Or someone he owed? She didn't want to think it. She had to know. She found Rachel's current address and drove. Rachel opened the door with tired eyes and a quiet sigh, as if Elena's arrival wasn't unexpected. "You're his wife," she said softly. Elena felt the floor tilt. "You know who I am?" Rachel stepped aside. "You should come in." The apartment was modest, clean, lived in. No trace of luxury, no sign of indulgence. On the coffee table were medical pamphlets, insurance forms, and a small framed photograph. A young woman, maybe 18, maybe 19, smiling with gentle eyes that resembled Daniel's. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. "Who is she?" she whispered. Rachel's voice was steady but weary. "My daughter. Her name is Lila." Elena swallowed. "Why has my husband been sending you money?" Rachel hesitated, then delivered the truth with devastating calm. "Because he's her father." The words detonated in the room. Elena felt them like shrapnel. Sharp, burning, unreal. He has a daughter?" she managed. "From before me?" Rachel shook her head slowly. "No, from the beginning of your marriage. You were newlyweds. He wasn't ready to tell you. And then the longer he waited, the harder it became. So he lied, and kept lying, and paid, and hid." Elena felt her knees weaken. She sat down before her body collapsed. Rachel continued, voice softer. "He wasn't with me. We weren't together. It was one night, before he married you, but not by much. I didn't know he had someone. When I found out I was pregnant, I tried to contact him. He avoided me, for years." Elena closed her eyes, horror and betrayal twisting like barbed wire inside her. "When Lila got older," Rachel said, "he started helping. Quietly, secretly. But he never wanted you to know. He was terrified you'd leave him." Elena let out a hollow laugh, broken, humorless. "He stole from me to support a secret daughter." Rachel didn't deny it. "And the criminal stuff?" Elena asked, voice cracking. Rachel lowered her gaze. "He owed money to people he shouldn't have crossed. They pressured him. They used him. He used others. And it spiraled." Elena covered her face with her hands. 20 years of marriage, built on a lie he never had the courage to reveal. Not an affair, not Mara, not stolen goods, a daughter, and a hidden life funded with Elena's inheritance. Her phone buzzed. A call this time. Detective Rowan. His voice was urgent. "Elena, your husband has been arrested, and he's naming you as a cooperative partner in his laundering scheme unless you help clear his debts. You need to get somewhere safe. Right now." The world finally shattered, and this time, there was nothing left to salvage from the pieces. Elena drove straight to the precinct, her fingers clenched so tightly around the steering wheel that her knuckles whitened. Detective Rowan met her at the entrance, ushering her inside before reporters outside could catch wind of her arrival. "He was arrested an hour ago," Rowan said as they walked down the hallway. "Possession of stolen property, laundering through civilian intermediaries, and fraud tied to long-term inheritance manipulation." The words felt heavy, surreal, as if they were echoing from someone else's life. "And he named me?" she asked, even though she already knew the answer. Rowan nodded. "He panicked. Facing major charges, he tried to shift responsibility onto you. Claimed you knew about the transfers. Claimed you benefited." Her stomach sank. Daniel hadn't stopped at betrayal. He hadn't stopped at theft. When cornered, he chose to drag her down with him. "But," Rowan continued, "your documents, the timelines, signatures, inconsistencies, they exonerate you. What you sent us was enough to sever any legal tie between you and his crimes. Without it, his claims might have stuck." Elena released a shaky breath. She had saved herself by uncovering the truth he spent decades hiding. "Can I see him?" she finally asked. Rowan hesitated, then nodded once. 5 minutes. He asked for you." She followed him down a corridor toward the holding rooms. Each step felt like wading through the remains of a life she no longer recognized. Daniel sat behind the glass partition, hands cuffed, eyes hollow. His shoulders sagged, not with remorse but with the weight of a man who'd run out of places to hide. When he saw her, he tried to smile, weak, pitiful. "Elena," he murmured into the phone receiver on his side of the glass. "Thank God you're here. You can fix this. You can help me." She picked up the receiver, but didn't respond. "I made mistakes," he rushed on. "I know that. But they forced me. I didn't have a choice. You know how things got. You know how stressed I've been." She stared at him, exhausted by the performance. "You stole from me," she said quietly, "for 20 years. His jaw twitched. "You had more than enough. You hid a daughter from me." His eyes flickered, but his expression didn't soften. "I didn't know how to tell you. You never intended to tell me, she said. Not once. He leaned forward, urgency overtaking him. They'll ruin me, Elena. You have to tell them we worked together, that you knew about the transfers, that you helped me. They'll go easier on us both if... She hung up the receiver. He froze mid-sentence. She looked at him through the glass, and for the first time in 20 years, she saw him clearly. Not as the man she married, not as a partner, but as a coward who used her stability as a shield while he built a secret life behind her back. Daniel slammed his hand against the glass. Elena, you can't walk away. You owe me. She walked out without turning around. Rowan waited just outside the hall. It's done, he told her softly. He won't be able to implicate you now that we've verified everything. And the others, the ones who threatened you, are already being tracked. Mara agreed to testify. So did Rachel. It struck Elena then. The chain was collapsing. Every link Daniel had depended on, every accomplice, every lie, was breaking under its own weight. Will he get bail? She asked. Rowan shook his head. Highly unlikely. His involvement is too deep and his risk too high. She nodded, though the finality of it hit her harder than she expected. The life she lived was over. Not by choice, by revelation. A few hours later, she returned home to silence. The house felt foreign, like a museum filled with artifacts of a marriage that had never truly existed. She walked upstairs, opened her jewelry drawer, and stared at the empty velvet tray. Only one item remained, a small handmade trinket her mother had gifted her at 16. A simple bead pendant, inexpensive, clumsy in design, but accompanied by words she suddenly remembered with painful clarity. The things without great value show you who a person really is. Anyone can pretend to care about the expensive ones. Elena touched the pendant gently. Everything else had been taken, but not this. She closed the jewelry box slowly. No tears came. She had none left. She walked through the house one final time, not to mourn, but to acknowledge what she was leaving behind. 20 years of a life built on sand. 20 years of lies she mistook for stability. 20 years of loyalty given to someone who never earned it. She picked up her coat, stepped outside, and locked the door behind her. She didn't look back. The story didn't need reflection or healing or new beginnings. It ended exactly where it should, with the truth exposed and justice delivered.